Can I pour you a drink, buddy?
You can.
What can I pour you?
You pick.
Do you like scotch? Check
Yep.
this out.
Do I like scotch?
Lagavulin.
My first name's Kirk. That'll fit. Kirk was my mother's maiden name, so that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wasn't kidding around. I'm Scottish.
You are Scottish.
Yes.
All right.
You ready?
Saddle and Sea.
Yeah.
Should we go
Unbelievable.
fireside
Yeah.
and chat?
Step
Cool.
behind the
All
bar.
right, let's go do it. I'm Kevin Murphy, and we're starting a podcast called Saddle and Sea. And my object is to gather friends and have them tell good stories. They have a lot of good stories, and we're trying to put them together. And it'll be related to basically horseback, cowboys, ranching, and all things on the sea. A lot of surfing and probably, I would guess, some boating. My guest here today is, we call him KP, Kirk Putnam, and Cody Murphy. And we're just going to talk a little bit of story and see if we can't bring some things to light. So KP, when I first met you was on one of the rides.
Oh, it was?
It was on the RV ride. And for some reason, we just started talking and you know, we found a common thread. There was a gentleman that both you and I knew of from Val Surf. Oh yeah, Kevin. Oh yeah. And the stories just,
Kevin, I always laugh.
oh man, and the stories just started from there, and we've had a pretty good relationship ever since.
That was kind of the blossoming of that friendship, of talking about Kevin and laughing about all the stories we knew about Kevin. And a similar area to where you grew up, and I knew those guys from a different area.
Yep.
Pretty funny.
Yeah, and so we do have some commonality. I'd like to ask you, you know, what turned you on to surfing?
My family had a connection to a house in Laguna Beach, and my brother's 7 years older than me, which is kind of a big difference. So when he got into surfing, you know, that's something I wanted to do. So it was really from my brother, and started surfing and being around that surfing culture in Laguna Beach. And we grew up in Burbank, but everybody had beach houses in Laguna Beach. Even Yater's family did. That's how he got connected too. Yater's family's from Pasadena. And Wardy was from Pasadena. There's quite a few people, but they all gravitated to the beach in the 50s. It was the place to be. It wasn't very crowded, so it was their summer spot. So that's how I started surfing down there in Laguna Beach, skimboarding, body surfing. My dad body surfed and fished down there. So that's how I got exposed to it. And once I stood up on a board, I was like, phew, that was it. I was at Rock Pile in a terrible surf spot.
How old were you?
9. Yeah, 9 years old. And the board was so big, I could probably outsurf my brother within like 20 minutes, because I weighed like, you know, $1.nothing. You know, I probably weighed 80 pounds, maybe.
Yeah.
So I could run up and down, as long as it was going straight and I didn't purl. You know, so that's how I got introduced to surfing. But I got the bug after that right away.
Yeah.
So.
Gosh, that's about, I think, when I started surfing too.
Well, you were closer to
You
the
a little
beach.
earlier.
You know, you were right by the beach. That was harder for me.
Yeah. What got you? Because you started shaping at some point, right?
I started working in the surfboard industry, fixing dings for friends, and that's how I got into it, glassing surfboards in my parents' garage and getting in trouble for that, stinking up the garage and making a mess.
Yeah.
And swapping and trading boards. And once I moved up here to Santa Barbara in 1972, I moved to Carpinteria and got a little studio with some buddies, and I ended up being Al Merrick's babysitter when he had Brett, who's running Channel Islands now. Well, when Al's wife got pregnant with Heidi, their daughter. She didn't want to be in the shop in Channel Islands, which was over on Helena Street behind the beach house over there in Santa Barbara. She didn't want to do it anymore. She already had a kid. She's like, let Kirk do it. So Al kind of got stuck with me being his first shop guy.
Nice.
To run the little showroom there that we had on Helena Street in 72, 73. And I was going to college at City College, kinda. Going to college a little bit. So that got me into the surfboard industry in Santa Barbara. A few years after that, I went to work for Yater, and I stayed at Yater's for 8 or 9 years.
That was early on, huh?
Yeah, and that was fun, good era.
God,
So I'd run the shop in the morning and work in the back in the afternoons. You know, eventually I started working in the back building boards. That's how I got into that.
So we had, in that time era, you couldn't wear a leash.
Didn't wear a
where
leash.
we grew up.
Didn't wear a leash
I don't
where
even know
we
if
were.
they had leashes back then.
I think
remember.
leashes came in while I was at Yater's, right around 73 or 4. The first bungee cord thing started coming about. And actually Larry Block brought the first kind of prototypes to the Yater shop for us to try and stuff. And at first we were like, I don't know if this is going to take off. And you know, I was at Malibu when Pat O'Neill put the first leash when they were on the nose of the board. Do you remember that with the suction cup?
Kind of.
It didn't last very
never
long
had
because
one.
it wasn't a very good idea.
Yeah, not a good spot, huh?
And they disqualified him in a 4A WSA contest because he wore the leash. And he goes,
Oh,
this is the future of surfing. He went out there and he ripped, but he got disqualified.
That's funny.
I was on the beach at Malibu when they did that, so it was pretty funny.
So surfboard design,
Oh,
during that time, we had what we called no-nos, and they were so the rails, they were pretty thick boards, pretty blocky rails. Usually we do like a butt tail or a diamond tail or a round pin or something like
a
that.
real narrow nose.
Just
Yeah,
like that.
like an elf shoe.
And then we do a really cool plywood fin.
Oh yeah,
You know, you'd
glass on,
feather that thing on there. Yeah, glass on fins,
marine ply.
marine ply, and I'll tell you, those things work.
Yeah,
They just worked.
yeah.
At least where we were.
That was a good era.
All the point breaks, you know, a little bit of a hollow wave. They just work really nice.
Until you end up on the
Yeah.
other side of the rock from your board.
Or you hit a fin with the wooden fin and hit a rock with your fin, and
Done
then it
that.
sucks up
It
sucks up a
stops
lot
you
of
pretty
water.
quick. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, the rocks were where we surfed, and it was just
Where you guys were, oh my God,
It was
there
just-
isn't a sandy beach.
yeah, a big difference. And to me, you know, after you got used to it, it was just like a sand bottom, no matter where those rocks were, and there were some in the wrong place for
Oh,
sure.
in that area? Oh, I know where those rocks were. I hit them in my surfboards and my boat.
It would cost me $75 to make a board
Yep.
back then.
You get a reject blank. Where were you buying blanks from back then?
I think I was buying them from
Greg
ET
Knoll?
Surf.
Oh, at ET.
Well, there's a couple places because you know Hermosa Beach was right there.
Oh, yeah.
and
The whole surfing board industry's right there.
I don't know. We did go down to the Clark Foam. You know, that was a long time ago.
So,
Oh,
Kev,
yeah.
where were you surfing?
I was surfing. The first place I ever surfed was Portuguese Bend,
Oh, yeah.
and my cousin Danny Kirk. Well, that was his dad, Tommy Kirk.
K-I-R-K?
Huh?
K-I-R-K?
Yeah.
No way. You never told me that.
Do you know Tommy?
No, but
I'm sure you ran.
I could be related.
He's your age. I'm sure you ran
funny.
across him somewhere. Anyway, he taught me how to surf down there, and then my first reef break was Haggerty's.
Yeah.
So spent a bunch of time there at
Rat
about
Beach?
9 or 10 years old. Rat Beach. I was afraid of Rat Beach because
Malaga Cove?
all the chicks were running around
Oh,
naked
yeah.
down there at that time.
Were they really?
Yeah.
Man, I wish I'd have known that.
No, you had naked chicks running around, and then up on the pinnacles you had the hang gliders
Yeah.
crashing.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a forbidden.
I'd
forbidden
sneak down there
place.
and go surf PV in that area after school and cut school. Go surf. What's the very first point above Malaga?
Indicator?
The left indicators. Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
man. Ooh,
above
for a goofy
the
foot?
cove indicator. Yeah,
Cut school.
Are you goofy?
Oh yeah.
Regular?
Goofy.
that's a fun spot. Goofy Foot. Yeah, I hung out Indicator was sort of where I'd hang, and then there was a couple places around there, Charlie's and Pipes.
Yeah.
And then you'd go over to a couple other spots in Dominator and Lanata, and then a couple other
that
spots
area is still
south of that.
pretty localized.
Yeah.
They kind of,
It's still
They
really
made the news
localized.
a couple times.
yeah,
It's still really localized.
yeah. And I don't blame them. From Portuguese Bend all the way to Malaga and Haggerty's is still kind of that way. Maybe not so much. But.
I remember, when I was younger, won't mention any names, but on the San Pedro side, it was, you could get your, you can maybe
Portuguese
have a
Bend?
really hard day. Not Portuguese Bend, but
That area is still heavy.
south of there.
The San Pedro
Yeah.
guys? Oh, man.
So that's where Tommy,
Yeah.
he was pretty much up there
Yeah.
with those guys. Yeah, Tommy's a good guy.
Stavros, that whole crew, the surf shop.
Yeah.
I don't think those guys were like any of the heavies, but
No, I think
Shout
some
out
of
to
those
Steve
guys,
Dempsey.
some of those
Yeah.
guys were.
I remember that name.
You remember
So-
Steve?
Yeah.
My friend, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, Steve Dempsey. So we would build boards down at Steve's shop, and we had Craig Richmond down there building boards. Joe Bark.
Joe was down there?
Yeah, early days he was down there, and then I would do some shaping at that point. I would do some airbrushing on the boards,
Oh, really?
and kind of flipped around doing a bunch of stuff.
What shop was that?
So Steve's shop was Magic Glass,
Magic Glass.
and that was in
Like a glass shop.
Yeah, and that was in Harbor City. He had a couple different shops, but Steve started glassing boards. I want to say in like 7th grade, might even be sooner. And he
Early
did that out of
70s,
his-
late
out of his
60s?
house. Yeah, so it would be 70, probably 1974.
Yeah.
Man, he earned it. Every day he'd come and pick me up. He'd bring a stack of Rolos, and he'd just have glass all over his arms.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Oh man, he would bathe in acetone.
I
He
did
would
too.
try, he would try wearing a mask off and on, but
Oh, no, man.
I pretty much caught him most of the time in shorts, t-shirt, and just resin all
Oh,
over
yeah.
his
That was
arms
kind
and-
of a lot of guys. A lot of Sanders I knew died. And we've lost a lot of guys to not taking care of their safety back
Yeah.
then. I used to gloss at Yater's in the afternoon when everything calmed down and shut the doors and get the air calm, turn the heat up, and I'd shoot 10 sides and run home, try and eat dinner up Garden Street in Santa Barbara. And I'd come home, my wife, and I wore a good charcoal mask and taped up, and she said she could still smell resin on my breath. Then I had to go back down, pull the tape, and shoot another 10 sides.
That's not only on your breath, but that's in your lungs.
Yeah, I know. And the acetone, we just dove in on it.
Yeah. We had to get it off, right?
Yeah,
had to
nothing you
get
can
it
do. You're
off.
gonna have sticky hands, and I hated it. I don't like anything sticky on my hands, oil or resin. So you got to get
Goes
clean.
through the gloves, anyways.
Yeah,
What are you gonna do about it?
it's better now. They're more safety conscious now. It's better.
Yeah. So the Yater days.
Yater days. I
Cool days.
left Channel Islands. I started working with some guys at the Chart House, and the main guy that ran the Yater shop was Greg Tice. And Greg ended up being a realtor in Santa Barbara, very successful, super nice guy. He got a waiter job, and I was prepping food in the evenings or the mornings over there. And he goes, "Hey, I'm leaving. I got a waiter job. I got a waiter. You need to go over to Yater." So Yater got stuck with me when I was about I think I was 18 or 19. Yeah. So I got a job over there, and he wasn't very happy about getting stuck with an 18-year-old squirrel who was, bouncing off the walls with energy. And Rennie is like super chill. He doesn't say much. A man, good work ethic, very quiet. I totally respect that. But man, I was pretty squirrely. So it was kind of like water and oil at first.
Yeah.
But I got kicked out of math class in high school. Some math teacher said something about my brother, and I was real sensitive. My dad had passed away, and he said something about the family name, and I kind of whacked him and got kicked out of math class. But I had to go into record keeping, so I learned how to keep a set of books. So that's the first thing Rennie asked me. "Can you keep a set of records?" And I'm like, I can. And he was kind of shocked, and I was like, all right. So he gave me a shot. That's how I ended up over there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I kept the lobster business and the surfboard business.
So how'd you
Books.
kind of wiggle your way into the shaping room there?
I never really, I'm not much of a shaper. I was all involved in everything but the shaping. I watched him shape hundreds of boards, and I really regret in the long run not doing that more. I can shape, and I have shaped lots of boards, but it's just the design thing and all the glassing and the business part of it ended up being more of my forte.
Well, that's important. Just as important.
And a funny story, I started riding Greg Little's boards down in Malibu when I lived down there in that area. And Greg Little was a Yater distributor. He didn't even shape until 1968. Before that, he was a Yater distributor, and he was a Jacobs team. So he sold Jacobs and Yaters in the Valley and Woodland Hills. So I got a board from Little when Little started shaping, but they were kind of, Little based his business plan on what Yater did.
Yeah.
And they bought resin together and did stuff. So his whole plan was based on that. Somehow I just ended up at Yater's, but I knew both these guys.
Yeah.
So, and I always still rode Littles and stayed and talked and did a lot of stuff with Greg over the years, and it just kind of meshed together at some point, and I ended up doing Greg Little surfboards.
Which is what you're currently doing.
I still do that. Greg's retired now. He's been on Kauai for 38, 39 years, and he sent boards to me for 20 plus years from Kauai, and I would distribute them to the shops. And then I started making boards that were over 9 feet because he didn't like doing that. His shaping wasn't big enough on Kauai to turn them around. He goes, you do them. So I started working with Scott Anderson, which is in your area, Hermosa Beach, Redondo Beach area in the South Bay. And Scott and I were partners for, over 25 years. Scott passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a really good working relationship. And eventually Greg completely retired, and Scott and I just had the board scanned and built the business off it, replicating those classic boards.
Yeah, the CNC has revolutionized shaping boards, huh?
It'd be really hard to do Greg Little's boards without a CNC machine.
Yeah.
Really hard. There's a super small percentage of guys that could do it, and then you'd have to have them hand shape them all. It would be hard.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, what do you think about the CNC machine?
I think, my shaping days were a long time ago, and everything was by hand.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I never had a chance to, experience anything about the CNC machine. I've never finished a board from it. I mean, I've seen it. I understand it. I think it just falls in line with everything that we're.
You're kind of taking the work out of it.
I think
with everything we're doing.
A little bit.
You're taking the labor.
Hat you're wearing right now.
Well, these are all still done by hand. There's no.
That's what I'm saying. Right?
I mean, for me, there's
you can
no
get
way
one straight
around
out of the
it.
machine, or you can
That's
get
true.
one
That you know what?
Yeah.
That is a great analogy. I never thought of that one. That's a good one.
I do. There was something about shaping that was probably one of the most, Zen-like. What's the word I'm looking for? When
you're actually shaping the board, like doing it. Oh yeah.
When you're shaping it.
That's a hard thing to put into words.
When you meditate.
Get flow.
Meditate.
Yeah.
Get flow.
That's a good word.
It's a form of, meditation, and
It's a sculpture.
when I was watching that little movie last night about Wayne Lynch, I had always sort of kept something to myself about the shaping, and I had always reflected on it. And back then the technology wasn't, real advanced anyhow. A lot of that stuff didn't come about, but I had always, thought, well, how does that guy know that about the bottom and what a fin can do, and how the water comes off a wing and all those little, aspects of a surfboard, and I always shaped it how I thought it should look, I mean, I knew there were certain things like a speed box and V and or whatever, and Wayne Lynch said that same thing when I was watching. He goes, I never knew the technology of it. I just, and I hope I get this right, but his idea was, make it look good, and if it looked good, it most likely surfed good,
Right.
and it did.
I mean, what's the first
But-
thing that most good surfers walk into a surf shop and do?
Look at the board.
Put it under their arm and look down the rail. Everybody. You
Yeah.
put it under your arm and you're like, oh, this feels just about, I like the way the rail looks.
Yeah.
That immediate connection has to be there.
Yeah.
I don't see it as much as I used to, unfortunately. The surfing community has changed, but most hardcore surfers would say, yeah. Plus,
What are they coming
Wayne
in?
Lynch is an insane surfer.
Yeah.
Good shapers, good surfers make really good, they don't all have to surf, fantastic, but
Yeah.
some designers are just like Dick Brewer. He wasn't the world's greatest surfer. He could get the job done, but what a great designer.
Yeah.
But Wayne, oh my gosh, he could put his own equipment to the test.
Yeah. He awesome guy. So surf wise, business wise, you've got surfboard business. A couple things.
I still
going
do
right
little
now, right?
surfboards, and those are Greg's designs, and I don't try and change those. I keep those all original. I have about maybe 8 or 9 scans that I have of his original boards, and I keep those exactly how he would have done them with the same glassing schedule and everything. They're
Yeah.
replicated littles.
Yeah.
And then I do another line of boards with Mulla Surf Shop in Santa Barbara. They have 3 shops, San Francisco, Santa Barbara, and Venice. And I helped them in the very beginning when they built their first surf shop. He came to us, and a guy named Brian Hilbers, who I've worked with, another really great shaper. Hey, what board should I get for the shop? And we were like, hey, use these guys, use this guy. These are buddies, these are the best boards. What we think you should have in there is an alternative type of surf shop.
Yeah.
Wasn't something like was geared towards short boards. It was people that were starting to spread out their quivers with, different boards at the time, which has changed over the years. Guys have 6, 7, 8 boards now. When I was a kid, you had 1 board. You were lucky to have that.
Better make it last.
And then, maybe that changed where you had 1 or 2. You had a gun for big waves and a smaller board, and then now people have quivers of boards.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I ended up working with Mollusk, and so I do a line of boards with them that are my designs that I've done with different shapers over, the last 40 years. The real keeper designs that I like. And I work with my buddy Mike Sagas in Australia, who's, we worked at Yater's together in the 70s. And we're still close friends. And I work with him with the computer stuff. He's really good at that. And Mike's a super good friend, so we have a good relationship. So we can do stuff with technology and phones and computers. We can talk to one another and still work together, which is really cool because it'd be really hard to do without the new technology of
Yep.
So you're taking the
communication.
best of both worlds. I mean, you're taking a hand-shaped board and then scanning it and just replicating
Yes,
it.
take a really keeper board that we know is like the one, computerize it, and then even at that, I can talk to Greg or I can call Mike in Australia and say, hey, for Australia, maybe we need to add a little bit of a rocker here. You can tweak it, and that's what's really cool about the computer. I'm not that savvy with it, but I know some guys that are, and man, it's a tool.
Yeah, you can lose that, I guess, in
instead
the
of
hand shaping
making-
aspect, huh?
That's where you made a board, you spent your, $75, $85, and you're like, oh, that one didn't work. Got to go make another one. Let's try this. Well, with a computer, you can tweak that stuff, so it's really cool. It's made surfboards just way better.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I get the
agree.
hand shaping thing. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But
So horse stuff.
horse stuff.
So you've helped Graham with Los Padres Outfitters?
Yeah, I started with Tony when he was alive, goofing around. I've known Tony since 1969, 1970, and we grew up in the same kind of area. And then Tony moved up to La Conchita, and I moved to Santa Barbara. And I knew Tony when he started Los Padres, and he's quite the character. We could get some people to tell some stories about Tony Alves.
Yeah.
And he started packing back into the Sespe and doing all that stuff. And then when he passed away in the slide at La Conchita, Graham took it over. And I've known Graham since he was a little kid. He was, living down the street from the Robinson brothers, who I'm there. Those are my godsons. So he was around those guys, and he had a big head back then. I used to call him the head because he's a big boy.
He grew into it.
He did grow into it. So yeah,
he's a big
I've known
boy.
Grant since he was a kid, and then when Tony passed away, he took over Los Padres, and I've always trying to help Grant with Los Padres.
Yeah, he's done really well with that business. I'm proud of him. Yeah,
I'm super proud of him.
He one of the hardest working guys.
He is.
I know.
It's hard to keep up with Graham.
We just rode some of his
Yeah.
horses in Catalina, and they were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, he took care of us on a horseback ride over in Catalina that we just did, and
Yeah.
that was very, very fun.
He came back. I cooked for. He called me. Said, "I need your help." I'm like, "We're cooking for Connor Coffin, the Coffin brother. Connor Coffin's wedding. I'm coming back." I'm like, "Well, you're in Catalina." He goes, "Well, I'll be there Saturday morning." He left the Isthmus at 4:00 in his boat, and was back in Santa Barbara at 8:00 that night. And he was with you guys on the Catalina ride, right? What's
Yeah,
that
I'm
ride
trying to-
called?
Los Caballeros.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure he was only gone, I thought, for a day, right?
And most guys, when they promise that, they're leaving the ride from Catalina, going on a center console boat back to L.A. Harbor, driving
20-foot
from
boat.
L.A. up to Santa Barbara to cook for
That he's
a
only
wedding.
had for a month, maybe.
Really?
Yeah. Not even like some old trusty worthy boat. He's just like, well, hit it.
Most
He
guys
could do
wouldn't
it.
believe him that they'd be
No,
back. And
no,
he,
not at all.
He was smiling the next morning there.
Yeah. And we cooked for 130, 40 people, and he pulled it off. And next morning, boom, back to you guys.
Yeah,
And I think
that's
that
cool.
is kind of the epitome of when we were talking about what this podcast is all about. Living the lifestyle, kind of the Western lifestyle, horses and that, and also kind of straddling that with the sea life. And I think that's what's so unique about what happens here in this little area that we live in.
That's another thing we really haven't even talked about. It's the whole commercial fishing side of this.
Yeah.
It mixes in with all this, and everybody that loves the Channel Islands and what the cattle that were out at Rosa and that whole history, and how the commercial fishing industry revolves around the surfing industry, and it all kind of mixes together. It's
It really
pretty
does,
cool.
huh?
We are in a unique area.
Yeah.
We're lucky. Those three things just kind of intertwine themselves.
Most people find themselves in at least one or two of those.
Yeah, somebody's usually locked into one or more, but everybody's touching their toe. Nowadays, seems like all three really.
Yeah.
I went to the
Nowadays.
Hooked nowadays.
Is that
Well, I
changing?
think it's always been like that. The guys that were commercial fishing were always surfing out there. That's always been there. The abalone industry was going when I first moved up here.
Urchin divers.
Urchin divers, abalone divers, they were all surfing out at the islands and
So-
packing into the mountains and doing stuff back there too.
Speaking of saddle to sea, Boone,
Oh, Boone.
as cowboy as you can get, he's
Commercial
like
fishing.
commercial fishing now, huh?
Yeah.
I think he did a little bit of surfing and then he got into that somehow.
Yeah.
But man, he's knee deep in it now, right?
Yeah, I think he's got his lobster license now, doesn't he?
Oh, really?
I think. And my godsons, Shane and Jason, they have their lobster license and they dive urchin, and they were fishing black cod, but they've kind of switched back to urchin again.
Yeah.
And they're getting ready. I think today's the first day they can bait traps.
Did you ever get any of that Corbina?
No, I didn't, and they were driving me crazy. I got to figure out what they're biting on down there. They're swimming right by us.
I would love to hook up into some Corbina.
Yeah, I think
Fly
we need to
fishing.
go to
Off your boat?
no off the
Right
beach.
the beach there.
We were trying to get them yesterday down at Refugio. I was getting perch, a couple sand and their Dustin's just, dude, they're swimming right here, and we just couldn't
And you
get
can
them to
see
bite
'em, right?
anything. Oh, you can see them right there. They're in close.
Were
Lock and Cheetah's good, below Rincon.
Yeah. Were they
I want to
big?
try. Yeah, I want to try it down there.
Were they good size?
Yeah, they're
Really?
up there. Yeah, Dustin's caught a few. I haven't landed one yet.
A bunch of my neighbors are doing the kayak, ocean
Oh,
kayak
yeah.
deal. And they have their program. They'll most of the time bring back big halibut and make tacos. Out
Yeah,
of it.
yeah. There's one of Dustin's buddies at the hospitals is a guy that has he does YouTube videos and stuff, and he goes off Gaviota and he just slays the halibut. A little sketchy. I won't say I haven't seen some videos of him pounding off a few sharks with his paddle. So that does happen.
Hey, there's a few sharks off the coast here.
Yeah.
I know a few of the guys ran into them off of Halama.
Oh, up
You
in
remember that?
Vandenberg.
Wasn't
yeah,
it 2 in
yeah.
a row? 2 kayaks
Yes.
same day?
We actually have I have access to Vandenberg through my son, Dustin, who was in the Coast Guard. So he's got a pass, so I just sign up every 30 days. Yeah, there's some big boys at Vandenberg.
And growing up here, we just know that they were out there. We used
Yeah.
to surf beach.
Oh.
Be me and a buddy that would paddle
Really?
out, and you'd look down and say, "This water's black."
That's a
it's
weird
double
spot.
overhead.
It just
And then in 2008, all of a sudden,
Oh, yeah.
there were those 2 or 3 guys
Yeah.
separately that all got hit at
Very
the same
sad.
time, and
I
we
think
realized that there was something to all the sharks out
Yeah.
there. That
a year to the day, another one got it right.
there was, I think, 2 or 3 guys all at once. Followed
A year after year after year, almost on the same date.
What was your buddy's name? Whose tail got bit off
Yeah.
the board that was hanging in backdoor
Oh.
board shop there for a while?
In Morro Bay?
No, at Surf Beach.
Oh,
He was
really?
the first one that got tagged.
I can't remember his name.
I
haven't
built a
seen him
board
in
for the guy that had it
forever.
happen in Morro Bay on the south side of the jetty, and he lived. He got it on the leg, but it didn't, take it or anything. He just got bit.
Lucky.
You see them out at Halama all the time. They just swim under you, and you say, okay.
Yeah.
You
I know
do?
some guys
I
that
don't.
have,
I've never seen
they're
you out there.
plenty fed.
yeah, when you come around governments and you start going that way towards the base and everything, it turns into Northern California right there.
Yeah,
That's
I
what you
think-
feel like.
Oh, because of the cold water or the sharks?
When you go around governments, just the whole thing changes. When you go up towards Conception, you feel
Yeah.
like the geography just
Yeah.
changes.
I haven't seen one go under me, but I've had buddies that have been out there when they've.
I've
gone
never
by
seen
them.
one going under me. I've heard a lot of stories about governments in that area of
I think-
guys going under them and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think when people fly over in an airplane, they see a bunch right
Yeah.
at that point
Yeah.
down there.
And there was one attack there, one diver back in the maybe 70s. I don't know if it was in the 80s. He got clipped, but he lived.
Yeah.
But got him on the leg. I think it bit down on his diving equipment, and then it's usually a mistake.
Yeah,
It's just, obviously. it's just
couldn't tell me
really-
that if I
Yeah,
got bit.
I know.
Ain't
I've
no
kind of got
mistake.
more paranoid as I've gotten older.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's a cool story. I had my great grandfather. He was given a Spanish land grant up in Petaluma,
Yes,
and I had followed that story when I was younger with my dad.
right.
And we found an older Borquez up in the hills in
Topanga.
Topanga. I was probably 10 or 11. I had
South
interest.
Topanga,
No,
separate from
this-
up in Petaluma.
No,
No,
this Topanga here.
By Malibu, Topanga.
By Malibu.
Yeah.
So we have a connection. My friend Steve, his real name is Esteban, or Juan Esteban Borquez is his real name. It's connected to your family. They had the land grant in San Francisco where did the naval base
yeah.
take it over?
I think a lot of that people
They got their land taken
squatted.
away.
You know how a lot of those land grants, just people came in and squatted, and they couldn't really fight. So
They didn't.
a lot
Well,
of
they
that
lost
got-
their money fighting it.
And there was that too.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
but that's the
So-
same family.
That blew me away. I mean, I don't remember what brought that up, but
I don't know how. I think the Borquez name came up because we made a
Yeah.
surfboard that was called the Borquez, and you
Yes.
asked me like,
That's
"What's
how-
that about?" So I said, "Well, and Steve lived down the street from me for 25 years. He was one of the original little surfboard builders, main team guy,
Oh, is that
super good surfer at Malibu, like the guy. Like it went from Mickey Dora to like Steve. He was like really, really good surfer.
yeah, a lot of
Did
those
you know
photos
that?
were cool.
Steve was unbelievably good at surfing.
I saw a lot of photos that you
But
were posting in that.
He was adopted by Mr. Krajewski. His mom divorced Steve's dad early, and he didn't even know about that being a Borquez until he was like 16. Then he found his dad, who was already living on the Big Island in Hawaii. He used to run the commercial boats off of Paradise Cove. He ran
Interesting.
the commercial fishing boats. That's where that side of the family. That's another fishing thing that's funny.
Yeah, just Yeah.
So the boat,
Saddle
you
and
guys,
sea.
somehow we've never connected you guys together yet, but it's the same story. It's the
Well,
same
That's how
family
we'll
story.
have to dive into that side of the story.
Oh, yeah.
bringing him
You
up here.
you told me more of the story. I mean, you told me what I knew, but there's a lot to that story that you
Oh,
knew.
yeah.
And it was like, yeah, that's
The
him
guy
for
you
sure.
went and tried to find in Topanga was a complete character.
I remember he was. I swear he lived in a
He was a
fort.
cowboy.
In a fort on
He
the
did
side
a
of
fort.
a hill.
It was a shack.
Yeah.
And he lived on a ranch, and he was a worker there, and they pretty much just let him live there because he was there
That
before
sounds
them.
about right. Yeah.
They were like, "Oh, you could stay here." And when they went back, I think Steve went back. Unfortunately, I think Steve went back there with a guy named Craig Stesick, who's a friend of ours, who's a surf historian. He took Steve back there, but he had passed away like the week before.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't think of his uncle's name right now. But they went through there, and people had already he had stuff that he had collected. It was incredible.
He did. My dad was pretty impressed. I wish my dad could have maybe ran across, Esteban,
Yeah.
Steve, and sort of put the rest of that story together. We do have, a lot of information on it. But that was,
Steve's
When you
wife
told me
has
that
a
was
lot
so
of
cool.
stuff. Yeah, Steve. It's a small world.
yeah, just adds
I
more
mean,
to our
I heard
connection.
he had Spanish. He had a Spanish helmet, and stuff.
Oh,
He
really?
dug through. He knew where all the Indian stuff was. He was quite
The old man in
yeah,
Topanga?
yeah.
Wow.
This is way before hippies
Yeah.
took over. I mean, he was like an original guy that was just back there, living that lifestyle,
Yeah.
And Steve's grandpa was a cowboy in Malibu and helped all. Wasn't that many people. If you were a cowboy in
Yeah.
the 30s and there was a roundup somewhere in Santa Ynez or Malibu or this or and that, they went and helped.
You take the wagon
Exact.
and spend a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the whole Calabasas cowboy community, there's a whole story in there that goes back to Steve's family too, your family,
Yeah.
the Borquez family. Yeah.
That's cool. I wish there was a way to tap into that. I did. I
You
actually
can.
tried calling
It's-
Steve, and I think I had to leave a message. And
He's not very good on the
Didn't talk
phone.
to
I will
him.
tell you, he's
yeah.
not very good on the phone with technology or anything. He's
Yeah.
an unbelievable artist. And he lives in Santa Fe now and does his art there. His shoulders are blown out, probably from riding Greg Little surfboards,
Yeah.
every day.
Explains mine.
Not paddling really thin boards. So his shoulders are shot. So he moved to Santa Fe maybe 12, 15 years ago. I'm not sure how long it's been.
Hmm.
But super good artist. You can find his art. It's under he changed his name.
Yeah.
He's back to Borquez.
Yeah. He did have some interesting art. Kind
Oh,
of
yeah,
like
it's very trippy.
street art.
Yeah,
Right? Spray
kinda
can type
sculptures, paintings,
stuff. Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. Very interesting.
To flip a little bit, you're friends with the Greeno brothers, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't
George
know
and-
Bill
I mean,
that
there's-
well, who owns the winery in Sausalito Canyon, behind Price Canyon, behind Pismo there. But I was around when he bought that vineyard, and George was finishing his sailboat, doing a film called Crystal Voyager in '75, I think. But I knew George from surfing Rincon and doing boards and stuff, and he came in to Rennie and him fish lobster together for years. They did each other's traps up in the Hollister and switched off pulling each other's traps, and so they had worked together. So that's kind of how I met George, was through surfing and through the shop.
And those guys were pioneers.
Oh, George,
Yeah.
chain surfing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the velo kneeboard is the evolution of longboards to shortboards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys always, as a kid, just seemed like really, really out there.
Oh, it's
You
like
know-
watching a spaceman.
Yeah.
We went up to the Hollister Ranch and watched George surf governments, and when you saw how he was surfing, you were like, "Oh my, what spaceship did this guy fly in on?" I mean, he's doing figure eights and in the tube and on his knees, and you're just like, it was even in the first shot in Endless Summer, when he's on his knees at Sandspit. John Eichert took that film and gave it to Bruce Brown, and Eichert
Nice.
was a high school. They were childhood friends. So John Eichert's a really interesting Santa Barbara boat building character.
John Eichert. Haven't heard of that name.
Ike surfboards. Oh yeah, he had a shop in Goleta, and made a real revolutionary cutaway fin for longboards that George put on his first knee board. That's the board that you see being ridden in the very beginning of the Endless Summer at Sandspear.
Was it a fin that at the bottom of it kind of went like that?
It had a cut in it.
Oh.
It was like,
Yeah.
it went up,
So it
down, and
flexed?
then in. It had a cut. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Ike. There's one in the shop at the Mullis shop in the show that I did there.
Yeah.
There's a couple of
Interesting.
Ike's boards, and then he became a boat builder. He shaped the Yaters too. When they get busy in the summertime, Ike would come and help Rennie shape orders.
Do you have any good Hollister Ranch stories?
Oh, tons.
Boating in?
I don't know if I want to talk about that now. I'm just joking. Probably get in trouble. Yeah, I've been doing that since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, since I
It's
was
a fun place, huh?
in high school. Yeah, I started going in with Scott Stanley, who owns Esau's in Carpinteria, and Scott and I grew up together, and his wife. I went to school with Artie and Scott, and started boating in when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm going tomorrow.
Are you?
Actually. I am.
You can do some surfing or?
Yeah. Jeff
Nice.
just finished a 21-foot Greeno. It's another small world project. One of George Greeno's boat designs, which is built in Goleta.
Oh, interesting.
So he bought an older Greeno hull here in Santa Ynez that a guy had, completely gutted it. It's taken 3 years, but we're going to go tomorrow, and it's maiden ranch trip is tomorrow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where are we? Any swell?
No.
Yeah.
Be a nice boat ride though,
Yeah.
which I can deal with.
Good. Oh, have fun.
There'll be something. Never a bad day on a boat.
No. Is there anything that you'd like to throw in? Any kind of story that you'd like to talk about?
About which subject? I'm full of it.
I know there's
You're wearing a
tons of stories.
Oh, my
a
thing.
shirt from one of my favorite brands.
Oh yeah, Vaqueros
going
de
on
las Olas. Oh, okay.
Vaqueros de las Olas, Cowboys.
Yes. Cowboys of the Waves.
Which is a great name.
Yep. I thought of that we were on the RV ride, and we were cooking at Mike Naraki's place off Happy Canyon, and RVs. You got the Amigos, the Gringos, the Bastardos, and the Vaqueros. You got all these different camps, and Tony was like, "Man, we need our own camp for these guys that do all the work and surf." And I was like, "Oh man, that's a good idea." And so I came up with Cowboys of the Waves, and then I'm like, "Man, with all the history we have back here, it needs to be in Spanish." So at first it was Las Olas, I had it backwards. So I said, I had Matt Miller. I go, "Hey, talk to one of your gals that really knows her Spanish, and how are we supposed to say this?" That's how Vaqueros de los Olas.
Well, that was a while ago, right?
Pardon me?
That was a while ago, right?
94 or
yeah.
something. And I just did T-shirts for the next cookout for the next year. That's how it started.
That
Just
was
do
Matt
it.
who was up there this year. Okay, now the pieces are coming together.
Just did T-shirts, handed them out to everybody, and everybody was like, "Oh man, make some jackets." So I made a list of about 20 guys that I made Carhartt jackets for, and we embroidered it on the back, and it was a club for guys who hate clubs.
Best kind.
Are we going to be able to sell them in the shop here?
Sure,
We,
perfect spot.
we've been trying to make that
Hadn't
work.
been easy. It's been a long road.
I think I have a bunch of T-shirts and some
At
of
the
that
beach house.
stuff
Yeah.
in the back of someone's car or
Yeah.
truck. I think for about a year now.
Roger's
supposed to
wife,
come here.
Stacy.
Yeah.
She'll come over and get her stuff at once, but she won't drop off the T-shirts.
Yeah. Someday.
So that's how that started. So it's
Yeah,
just
it's
a
a cool
small
name.
clothing line that I do with the guys from the beach house in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And it was a totally surfing cowboy thing that intertwines,
Yeah.
which
Another
has just
cool-
been super fun. Some guys were like, "Oh, keep it just for us and keep it small." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's okay. You're getting a check from Patagonia. I'm
Yeah.
not."
Where are you going out of tomorrow?
Santa Barbara. Got to leave the harbor, go all the way up.
How
Tried to
long-
get them to pick me up at Gaviota, but they're not buying it.
How long is that ride?
An hour and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Did you ever come to that launch and find like maybe resin in the gears or something?
Oh,
that
yeah.
You
Are you
couldn't?
kidding me? Heck yeah.
I think
I'm not going to mention
more
names,
On a
but
really
I
good
know who
surf
did.
swell?
I know everybody who did it.
Yeah. We do too.
Yeah. Yeah, I had some turnarounds for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of funny.
You get up there and you're like, oh, this ain't going to be good.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was coin operated.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. And then they'd get the buttons and jam up. They figured it all out at different times. But that pier's gone now, man.
Yeah.
It's sad. I walk out there, and the times I pushed all those boats out there, I mean, just the memories just flood back, all the funny things that I've seen and done, and all the, oh my God, the greatest surf experiences of my life have been in that place.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have a real soft spot for that place. It was hard in the beginning, and when I first went to work for Rennie, the surf club still existed. It hadn't sold yet. So the Santa Barbara Surf Club was still in existence, and that was just a small group of guys that had access that could drive in and surf on the Hollister Ranch. In the early days, I think they were actually able to drive up to the Bixby. I don't think there was a problem with that. Later on, that might have changed, but yeah, I've seen it go completely from what it is today to how it kind of started out.
Back when they used to still allow everyone into the hoedown. And
Oh, the hoedowns, yeah. There's some funny stories about the hoedowns.
Been a couple of those. Those were fun.
Oh, the hoedowns were great.
Do you think that'll they'll have the public be able to access
No.
that? Have they shot that
It's
down?
a dumb idea.
Well, it's a dumb idea for sure.
But there's a lot of dumb ideas that everybody thinks are great, but it's not a very good idea. It's a private cattle ranch. The road is horrible. The railroad's there. It's just fix what we have.
Yeah.
Look at Gaviota, Refugio, El Cap. Look at the shape of our parks. It's a mess. Fix what you have.
That's true.
Yeah. That was my big point of the letters that I wrote.
Fix what we have.
Yeah,
Interesting.
you got to fix what we already have and make them right. Our state parks are a mess. We're not like that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, they were really taken care of, and everything worked. The bathrooms, half of the bathrooms are broken. The landscaping is on and on and on.
That's like today's problems for sure.
So you don't need to go do that in some place that's actually protecting something that's so precious. You can't do that. The road sucks. It's windy and dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's a working cattle ranch. You can't just go bust into somebody's working cattle ranch and go like, let's have a bunch of people come in every day and ride electric bicycles around. It's not going to work.
That's true. So. That's true. Yeah, I don't think they will.
I hope it doesn't happen.
Is there anything you want to add?
yeah, your most memorable ride in the saddle and ride on a wave.
My most memorable, bad or good?
Hey, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
Graham Goodfield. This is not it ended up being good. We wanted to ride back to Joe Gonzalez up to the Chismahoo on this back trail that he said was a trail. About a quarter of it was like a pig trail. We had to go up this trail called Heart Attack. Do you know where that is in Carp? Straight up. Riding like this. And I mean, just drove me crazy. Just beat the crap out of me. And I got back down. We made it through. All these things happened. I remember Keith Rolloy rolling down the horse and him rolling down a ravine. All kinds. Matt Miller too. When we finally got to this flat spot, I got Graham off his horse, and there was women on this ride and everything that weren't that experienced. And I'm not that experienced. I got Graham off his horse, and I just freaking grabbed him. I mean, I grabbed him up here, and I tried to kind of bitch slap him. I was like, "What are you doing? Are you crazy taking all these people?" He just goes, "They don't call it Los Padres Outfitters wilderness experience for nothing." And that was the end of it. I was like, "Okay." And what am I going to do with Graham?
Was that the early days?
That was pretty early.
That's funny.
And we made it back there and had a good old time. But man, the first part, it was a gnarly ride. But I've also had some really great rides with Graham there,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does a real good job.
Yeah.
And Vino Vaqueros, Pete does a good job for people back here. He does a really good job.
Yep.
Good experience for people to go experience everything kind of that we're talking about with horses.
Yeah.
And not have to. What you don't want to own a horse. You want to know a guy who owns a bunch of horses.
That could help, for sure.
That's my theory.
Well, that's the hardest part about up here is, you know, there's a ton of land, but it's hard to go riding it.
Yeah. Where do you keep your horse? You know,
it's
where do
hard,
you
man.
ride where you're not getting somebody mad at you? And
For as
it's
horsey
not
as
easy,
it is,
and it's
it
not
hasn't
getting
been
any
built out.
easier.
Yeah.
My wife did tell me something. There's a new program. They're trying to do a horses only trail back towards Kachuma again.
That's done, I think.
Did they do
Yeah.
it? That gonna be cool.
They had in Live Oak. They had hunting actually for like a very short time. And
Live Oak
then-
camp?
Yes, and some of our friends put a nix on that because it's just too dangerous, and
Oh, right there it is.
you know, hikers and horse people and, you know, hunting, it just doesn't mix. But in that little area, you had a second question. Was it most
Best time in the
memorable
saddle
way?
and best wave.
Oh my God, best waves, Hollister. There was a day at Razor Blades, and I got to surf with all my heroes: Pat Curran, Reynolds Yater, George Greeno, John Bradbury, Bob Duncan from Wilderness Surfboard. I mean, all guys that I just grew up idolizing, and it was just an unbelievable day. I do have pictures of it too.
What time era was that?
Probably 1976, I think.
Were you
Mark was
riding?
there. I borrowed a board, a biggest board we had on the boat. It was a 710 Shapes and Hulls. My friend Tim Bowler made. He still has a shop in Goleta. He was in Alaska building boats for years, but he's back here. I borrowed a board from him who I was with on the boat, stuck a giant little fin in it, and went out maybe 10 to 12 feet and just perfect.
Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday were both like that. It's just
Nice.
the best day that I ever, maybe not, you know, when I lived on Maui, I surfed some really good waves, but that, just the whole setup of that day and everybody I was surfing with is what made it
I'm
so
sure.
special. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Being
sure.
to surf with Rennie. The picture I have is really funny too. I'm on a really good 10-foot wave, and Rennie, we were paddling and a set was coming, and he goes, his nickname for me was Speed. He said, "Hey, Speed, are you going?" So I turned around, "You're not going?" So I went on this wave, and I got an unbelievable picture of him. You know who's on the wave behind me that's like 3 feet bigger? Reynolds Yater. Right in this, when I kicked out, he was right in the slot behind me. He totally suckered me in. "Hey, Speed, you going?"
Nice.
He knew I could
knew.
go.
Yeah. He knew.
So I do have a really good picture of that wave.
You do?
Yeah, Steve Bizzell was up under
Oh,
the
I'd like to
trestle.
see that.
Yeah, so it's really nice
Yeah.
to have that memory.
Yeah.
And what was the other question? Best
That
you
was
said
it.
best
Those two.
surfing.
Best
yeah.
trail and best wave.
That horse
Best
ride
trail.
wasn't the best, but it was pretty memorable.
So KP, that was fun. I really enjoyed your company. Thanks for giving us your time.
It's very fun.
And as we get going, we can, you know, tell more stories about
Oh yeah.
Saddle and Sea, and there's plenty out there to be had.
Oh, tons of it.
So I hope you'll
It's a
join
great
us
subject.
again.
I'm glad you guys are doing it. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Good.
All right,
Good. Thank you.
Stuff,
Cody,
man.
thank you.
Thanks
Kevin,
for joining
thank
us,
you.
folks, at KJ Murphy's. And till next time, we'll come up with.
I don't have my hat on, but it's in my truck
I saw that.
all the time.